Welcome, Seeker, to Mystic Praxis, a charming podcast at the crossroads where the eclectic meets the divine. Join us as we play with integrating spiritual pathmaking and modern culture to make our everyday lives more mindful, mystical, and magical, and to share what we learn along the way. Whether you're a longtime skeptic or down for some full-on witchy woo-woo, this lo-fi, high-vibe series has got you covered. Hey y'all, it's me, Alya Lux, host of the Mystic Praxis podcast. Hello and welcome, seekers and skeptics, woo and woo curious, to what is our 8th official episode of the podcast. I wanted to check in and talk to you a bit about an experience that I had recently that I thought was useful and instructive and might also be able to help you if you are facing any of the same sort of struggles I am about charting my path forward into the future. So I'm actually in the process of going through a couple different training programs. I've mentioned a couple times the therapeutic yoga training that I'm getting, but I also got the bright idea this spring while I felt like I was going to be locked in my house for a few months. Well, I thought it was going to be 3 months, but we're going on 6. So I signed myself up for a fitness coaching program that is fairly holistic. So there's a personal training aspect to it, and there's a group exercise component to it, and there's a nutrition aspect to it, and there's a wellness aspect to it. So as I've been working my way through the materials, which are, mostly straightforward physical training, strength training, aerobic exercise type things, I found my way to the wellness module and the wellness assignment, because all these modules, of course, have assignments that I have to complete to get credit and show my work, so to speak. So the wellness assignment was fairly straightforward. I've actually done things like it before. The trainers requested that I submit a vivid vision, so a description of where I saw myself or my fitness business or my life or what have you 3 years out. So I've done exercises for this before, and if any of you have worked with life coaches or even therapists in some cases, or you've gone through almost any kind of career development conversation or exercise, trying to imagine where you are a couple of years out is a fairly common exercise. But I liked what how they framed it, or what they used as sort of the backing of it. They used a specific example from Cameron Herold's book, and specifically his discussion on vivid vision. So a vivid vision is a written document about 3 pages long that describes in vivid detail what you envision your career company to look and feel like 3 years out, without detailing how each part of the vision itself will get built or put in place. It describes what the future looks like, not how you'll get there. So this is fairly straightforward, right? I can write 3 pages. I could talk for 40 minutes, just whatever you need. I can fill up time. I can fill up some space with words. But I wanted to actually know. I wanted to actually have a firm vision of what I would be doing 3 years out. And I just constantly have all kinds of ideas swirling around in my head. And one weekend went by, I'd read the assignment and I'd sort of thought about it and jotted down a few notes and thought this will be easy and I'll get around to it. Another weekend went by, I wrote a few more notes, and then the third weekend came and I realized I was sort of steeling myself against it. Like, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to try and marry up all of the ideas that go into what I want. So without giving too many details away around my vivid vision, part of what is difficult is that I'm trying to kind of like join up the woo side of me with the very not woo side of me. So I have this kind of vision of providing coaching services and such that combine both all of the physical practices and somatic practices related to wellness, which can get pretty woo, with the more corporate leadership development-y practices, because I have great empathy for how much stress folks who are working 9-to-5 jobs are in. And given my exploration of all of these different techniques, I feel like I'm in a unique space to help them, both from the sort of very material, career-oriented, goal setting and types of things that you need to do in career development or leadership development, and also center folks and have and allow them to have more fulfilling living through mindfulness and nutrition and physical movement and things like that. So if that sounds wacky and far out, I get it, it is. And trying to coalesce that into a vivid vision was very difficult. Here's what helped, though. As I was resisting this very hard, right? And like I was writing down all of these notes, I'm like, how does this all sort of wrap up together into some nice, neat package that I can then, just send to these nice people who just want me to sort of put together something reasonable, I could have just said, hey, I'm going to open a boutique fitness center in the mall, and these are the services I'll have, these are the clients I'll have, and this is how I'll feel about it, go. But of course, I really wanted to visualize this for myself. So I used I pulled every tool out of my toolkit, I really sat down and I kind of put myself in that future space. That's part of what is recommended with the sort of worksheet they put together, which was very helpful, because in addition to some sort of other worksheets elsewhere in the course around like who's your ideal client and what's your brand image. By the way, I'm fun. That's my brand. And then I'm hilarious. Don't forget that part. But the vivid vision assignment included things like, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? What's happening around you. And so what I did is I essentially did a meditation. I mean, it wasn't, a super deep meditation, but I actually did kind of close my eyes and try and imagine, what is it like for me to wake up several years in the future? Where am I waking up? What does that feel like? What is my morning routine? What is work? What is my entrance into what work is? And, by the way, I still clutch coffee every morning in the future. That's still part of the vision, is the take my caffeine away and you'll regret it kind of situation. But that was really interesting. And I was just trying to navigate around in this space. A big part of the challenge is it's meant to be freedom, right? Don't try and figure out how you got there. Just what is there where you are in the future. And that was very difficult for me, because I'm very practical and very rational. And so I'm trying to, in my head, understand how this sort of future workplace circus situation, how it could possibly work, how it could possibly make money. And I had to keep pulling myself out of that and say, no, stop doing that. Just focus on what is happening during this day. And once I allowed myself to step into that future day and just sort of let the tape roll and watch the movie that was sort of playing inside of my head, I got 6 pages out of it. I didn't write 3 pages. I got 6 pages out of it and a bunch of notes. And so, I skinnied it down. I pulled out the highlights and I sent it off, and it was a relief. And I hated it, meaning I hated the process of getting myself to get to the point where I could write it, but I felt so accomplished afterwards. I mean, it was just an assignment for class, but it was sort of annoying to me that I could not just write something to complete the assignment and send it in, but I just felt so much better about it when I actually did press submit, and not only was I completing the assignment, but I had an answer. I don't know that that's where I'll be in 3 years. And actually, after having shown it to a friend or two, they said, this is a 10-year out vision, but that's adorable that you think you could get there in 3 years. Like, you go. So, okay, maybe it's a little ambitious, and maybe I'll go I'll go 180 degrees the other way as far as what I end up accomplishing. But it's kind of nice to at least give yourself a destination, a goal destination. And so the reason why I'm mentioning that to you, besides the fact that if any of you, this year have ideas about what you want to do in the future, but you're not sure how to proceed, one of the things that is always really helpful when you're doing goal setting, whether it's for your personal health, your social life, or your career, that you actually do kind of figure out what your goals are. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is that even though this is, by the way, like a stock career planning kind of assignment, a stock entrepreneurial precursor to a business plan kind of assignment, it can also be used in other contexts. A few years ago, I was working with a coach or a coach of some kind, and she gave me a similar assignment, which was at the time it was very woo for me, which is she gave me a guided meditation to visit my future self. And I was very skeptical, but I was going through a lot of stress and anxiety about some things going on in my personal life, in my career, financially, whatever. I was going through some stuff, and so what she recommended that I try this. So it was a guided meditation, and it was really amazing, actually. So I think that there are, if you are a connoisseur of guided meditations, you have a catalog or a particular meditation guide who you like, or you're on Headspace, or you're on Insight Timer, you might look for something similar to this. Besides going and talking to your future self, sort of the ally within might be another kind of thing that you would search for, because it's quite an experience that I'm very receptive to guided meditations because I am very visual. In my head, I have a lot of, I'm very visual. I can see things in pictures and such. And so I was able to have a very brief conversation with my future self. And it was very comforting to get a little bit of guidance, a little bit of perspective from myself. I think my future self was supposed to be 30 years out, and it felt it was a meditation, it was an imagination, but ultimately I was interacting with my imagination, my subconscious, and it was very comforting. And so sort of like being able to give myself a glimpse of what I maybe really want a few years out, just made up by myself, a creative envisioning and writing experience. It's the same sort of, it's like helpful guidance from you to you. And it was a really, although it was not the second example of going to visit my future self, that was obviously fairly woo, but the first one wasn't. But both of them had that similar type of comfort and guidance that might also be helpful for you. And the point of mentioning both of them is that they really are different contexts, right? One was more of a businessy kind of creative exercise, and the other was one that was meant to be and could be for folks more therapeutic, have sort of more of an emotional effect. But they were both really useful. And after I finished the exercise and also was had sort of remembered, because it just jogged my memory. I mean, I completely forgot about this thing that coach had me do years ago. I thought about that, and I thought, I wonder what else I could apply this to. And y'all, I have been thinking about applying this to my spiritual practice. And hear me out. What kind of wooster do I want to be? If I could be the very best wooster that I could be. Here's why. I was given an assignment. This is almost a confessional, so depending on who listens to this, I might get in trouble. I was given an assignment in one of the classes that I was taking to write a transcript for myself, meaning go back and write down like every witchy, magical, spiritual book that I've ever read, every course, every article, every series on YouTube, whatever. And what I had done, personal experiment wise. And I didn't do it. I think part of it is because I'm not really that excited looking back. I'm a little impressed sometimes because I'm like, wow, look at all those books that I read. I wasn't thinking about them as I'm reading them, but now that I'm looking at that stack of books, that looks pretty impressive. But I don't have the patience for the history. What I like, instead of transcripts, what I like is I like a syllabus. So it's fall now and folks are in back to school mode, even though it's weird, I know. But back to school mode, and even the beginning of this fitness course or the yoga, the therapeutic yoga course, or any kind of witchy course. What I love is I love digging out that syllabus and figuring out what it is that I'm going to need to read or I'm going to need to accomplish in order to finish the thing. And so I was thinking about coming up with a reverse grimoire for myself. And I'm going to, and I will let you know how it goes. And so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one of these sort of vivid vision exercises for my woo self. I'll be the woo-stiest wooster. I'm going to do the future vision exercise again. But the other thing I'm going to do, so it's not totally a reverse grimoire, but because I will take advantage of stuff that I have finished completely to so I'll have like a recent transcript. But really what I want to do is I have all these half-finished projects, right? So part of the reverse grimoire would be finishing those out. And I think this will work because last year when I was going through my first yoga training, I was sort of, as I went along, I was keeping a record, I guess, when I would get inspired or just sort of things that I kind of wanted to like keep track of. Well, I was taking notes, but I also decided to put them in. It almost ended up being like a scrapbook, because there was a lot of art and collage in it. It was a very artsy thing, but I was kind of, I knew where it was going because I had the syllabus. And I was also sort of, as we were going through the program, I was kind of if you will, sort of like scrapbooking along the way. It wasn't like what I think of a grimoire as. So for those of you who are not witchy, I would describe a grimoire as a lab notebook for a magical practitioner. It's where they sort of keep track of experiments they've tried and what the results were, and, and favorite recipes. So this idea of sort of having it be reflection back and projection forward, but not records so much as a vision statement that changes over time. So the other thing, though, is that we are headed into Q4. So typically I do planning at the beginning of the year. I don't really believe in resolutions, but I do like the annual process of setting goals and trying to kind of track where I am according to my goals. And this year is shot, except for the fact that because I forced myself to write down my goals at the beginning of the year, I'm actually looking at them now, and I actually did a pretty good job of meandering my way towards the goal. There are a few sub goals that I, have completely lost track of. But since we're headed into Q4, which is typically a low energy period for me, I'm in the Northern Hemisphere. I live in a climate that's going to get who knows if it will be mild or not, but generally gets a mild winter weather, meaning snow, but not like snowstorms very often. Not like maybe 1 or 2 blizzards a year, as opposed to other places that I've lived that is basically like pure blizzard for 6 months. So fourth quarter is one where my energy gets really low, and I thought what might help is to do a compressed, like 1 quarter long goal setting and tracking as a way to kind of keep me on track and keep me busy and keep me focused through the end of the year. So I will tackle some of the remaining goals, but I will also be looking to do this future-focused vision setting for my practice, which I'm really excited about, and I'll tell you in a future episode how that went, and also if I kind of made progress on what I'm going to do, which is sort of this reverse grimoire, which I will then sort of add to as I actually go through the syllabus that I'm creating for myself, because I have a book for it, and it started, but now with purpose, it has a direction where I'm going to take it. And I'm excited because when it comes to spirituality, I'm not goal oriented. I'm experimental, like this podcast, right? I'm not trying to sell you on any particular direction or thing. I'm doing a bunch of experiments. I'm trying things. I'm taking you along with me and sharing what I've learned and where I've gone. So this is going to be really different for me, that I'm going to sort of with purpose try and look at some of these experiments and actually, if you will, sort of finish the experiment. And some of the things that I have kind of been working on all along, I'm looking at and saying, oh, wow, I could actually just wrap that up. Meaning one of the things that I did this year is I read the Elias Levy book. What is it? Transcendental Magic. I read a book by Elias Levy. That's what I did. So I read that. I got through the whole thing. That's a thing that I can kind of wrap up. I've done a course or two. I taught myself a lot about Ogham, the Celtic. They call it tree runes, but it's really a Celtic alphabet that's used for a very old Celtic alphabet that's used for divination and things like that. And I've been sort of crafting a curio and bone divination set of my own making and kenning, which I think is interesting. You might want to hear about. And I've also done some preliminary researchy stuff about some of the connections between the somatic practices I'm experimenting with within yoga and how those are used in other spiritual traditions. So I have all these like little things going on, and maybe what I can just do is kind of spell them out in a syllabus of my own making. And it doesn't just have to be me being a magpie and being all over the place. I could actually just, say, hey, this is what I'm doing, and this is my syllabus, and then finish my reverse grimoire. I know I probably won't get it done by the end of the year, but that is like a secret goal of mine, that I could actually just kind of like, oh, I have all of this material, I can just put it in this beautiful book and show. So the last one I did was roughly a year in the making, last year's book, and so this one might be maybe more like a year and a half in the making. But I love the idea that while I have been all over the place with my experimentation, maybe I can pull it all together into something that shows how much work I've done, and inspire myself to try something new after that. In any case, I just wanted to share with you a little bit about this very surprising for me homework assignment that ended up being kind of a light bulb moment about future visions and the sort of the comfort and structure we can give ourselves even while everything around us is sheer madness, y'all. And also this idea that that we can maybe gently point ourselves in a direction and give ourselves credit for all of the things that we've been doing, even if we aren't not necessarily like the rigid discipline of a lab notebook or a grimoire, but a more not more creative. Grimoires and lab notebooks can be tremendously creative, but like a little bit less structured form of structure to give ourselves kind of a result at the end of a bunch of exploration. Because a lot of adventures don't actually have a destination. Am I right? Like a lot of adventures are actually just about the process and the wrong turns you made and the weird rest stops and the cool diners that you stopped at along the way. And we can get pretty caught up in the destination. But I love the idea of giving ourselves a little more credit and a little more enjoyment out of the process, because I think the adventure is in the process. The learning's definitely in the process. And I have always been more of a let's just get to the destination kind of gal. But I think maybe that's because I didn't, when I stopped to smell the roses, I didn't necessarily like create a work of art and write a poem to the roses that I smelled. So this is my little way of saying, let's have fun. Let's envision. Let's dream big. Let's not worry about writing down dreams that things will change on the path to achieving whatever goal we're trying to achieve. So in any case, let's cheers to jumping down the rabbit hole and enjoying sort of the floating down and not worrying too much about what Wonderland's going to be like when we get there. Wonderland will take care of itself as long as we are sort of dropping through the rabbit hole. Oh, this is a really weird analogy, but here's to enjoying the adventure, which is the process of becoming who we are and not worrying so much about the destination. I'll keep you posted. I hope y'all are staying well, and I look forward to chatting at you sometime again soon. Peace. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Mystic Praxis, and we would love it if you would hit subscribe wherever you found us, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, or straight from our RSS feed at mysticpraxis.com. Don't forget, you can also give us feedback and find us live on your favorite social platforms. We are Mystic Praxis on both Twitter and Instagram, and you can email us at mysticpraxis@gmail.com.